Browne, or Kal Kat. Yeah, and I was doing some blog stuff this week. In addition to us starting production again on Chimera, Mark's Cards, and I have continued the production. And there's a slight new update about all of the copyright things. Apparently, the website for Star Trek Horizon has also been flagged by Paramount CBS. But for something similar, they were using backgrounds with their green screen and music from Enterprise. So, yeah, as long as they're not making a profit, they're okay. Well, they're just saying, okay, we were using backgrounds and music, yeah, but not a profit. Chimera will not have that problem because it's not for profit. It's volunteer. We put a volunteer cast together to do that. Most of which quit after it didn't come to fruition the first year or so of production. And it was just in the end me and Mark's Cards doing it. Mark's Cards and I doing it. So at the end, as we get toward the end of filming, that probably happens with a lot of fan films. Where's the delivery? Anyway. So yeah. Well, the delivery is coming near the end of July of 2016. So there you go. So other stuff. I went over and reorganized some of the blogs and some of our Google stuff, and put the Brown Press Universal, which was a magazine, Brown Press magazine, back together. Moved some of the archived short stories, the Brown short stories, moved them to that, where they probably were originally at corcuskitty.com. Or corcuskitty.com, Corcus Kitty Google page. Yeah, I was looking at those short stories toward the end of the week, through this week, the little short stories that we did. And this is just a brief on some of the short stories that were done. There were a lot of novels and short stories that were done. Destiny's is the big one that had the actual release, and there was a book out in print. Blessings Deferred to a lesser extent, but that was a grandma's novel. But the science fiction one, yeah, Blessings Deferred, and we also work on storybooks and stories and things in addition to our video channels. And last year, we took one of our long-standing Mark's Cards Kal Kat series under our real names, short stories, story series that we had done, The Fictional Adventures of On Location, and we turned that into a space opera that's coming out, a space stoner comedy. Well, it's a sort of a slacker comedy, more or less. It's got some stoners in it, but they don't actually. They talk about being stoners, but they really aren't. They just a little bit. And so that's coming out. And we'll let you know when that hits the internet. But those short stories that I looked back on, I wanted to see if there was any proof of concept stuff with those. They were the 2002 releases, many of them, some from 97 short stories that had been kicked around during the San Jose State first San Jose State era. Round stories. And some of them had very interesting plots, but some of them were very similar. You can see, looking back on Starcrackers, which we were also working on, which is the storybooks. There's 4 of those. There's 7 Distant Destinies books. There's 4 Starcrackers ones. We were looking back on that going like, okay, they have some of those short story plots ended up in some ways in Starcrackers, as well as the 2 or 3 unsold Star Trek scripts that also ended up getting rewritten as the Starcrackers episodes. Better than that in Destiny's. So yeah, so looking at those short stories, and one of them was a curiosity called Gay Kitty, which is about Quark, our previous cat. Quark is Kitty. Quark. He's that orange cat, tabby cat. And looking back at that, thinking like this would make a really awesome web series. Like if we could totally animate a web series thing, it would be cool. We could have this. We have a ready-made story here. We've got this charismatic kitty cat and his friends, and each episode could be one of those short stories. I think that would be really awesome to do that. I'm not sure how we would do that, but it would be really awesome to do that. The Gay Kitty, although it's interesting that we called it that, we were trying to be avant-garde when it started. It was the 90s, and we were trying to like, oh yeah, yeah. Some of my earliest stories were about house cats and the neighborhood cats and stuff like that. Cat stories. Some of the very earliest stuff. The ones where they were in a house tended to not be as cool as the ones that were outside. So the outside cats became Gay Kitty. And he's not really gay. He's just flamboyant and outgoing. Yeah. Just put that name on it so that it would somehow sell. But it wasn't actually being sold to anybody because it never got published. It just appeared on Google. It's sort of getting published, I guess. It's self-published. But yeah, it didn't really go anywhere. So, but it's still ours, so we're still going to use it. The Gay Kitty series. It's about this cat and his friends go on adventures. Of course, the last two books, he basically dies at the end of the last one, so there are no more Gay Kitty stories. But if there was ever any stories about the current cats, it probably wouldn't make any sense because they're indoors. What would it be? Would Houdini get out and go on adventures? Kind of brief, a few seconds, a minute. I don't think it would work. So yeah, the modern cat story wouldn't work, but sort of that one time period between 94 and maybe 2008. Cat story is interesting. Yeah, so short stories were mainly as a result of creative writing classes and journalistic type / arts and humanities classes. English major the first time around in 98. So all these earlier stories were like, let's do some short stories and rewrite them and get a good grade on some of them. The ones that actually were graded didn't end up actually in the short story forum, which is interesting. I guess they weren't that good. But yeah, there was this odd one that had been called Bleak Dragon that got renamed as Contact with Geary and Eldana and several other titles. Yanzadi World Ship. It was a weird sort of story because, like, there was at the time during that time period there was John's friend Gary, and he's still his coworker, so it'd be kind of weird. So it was like this tie-in with Mark's cards and Gary. And wrote this weird story based on a trip on a bus where these guys explore this spaceship that looks like a big dragon embryo thing, nest thing in space. It's just really weird. I don't know. It just didn't. I don't know what I was doing. The later versions took that out and just made them the Geary, the aliens. An odd story, except that it has a charismatic captain, a sarcastic AI, and a robot in it. Very similar to a couple of the earlier stories. Sandoval the Hunted, which had a charismatic captain and a crazy crew, including a robot that was snarky. A lot of those tended to be a common theme. There was a time travel one with time travel losers in time. Same idea, charismatic young people going on space mission with time travel to the far off year 2017, which is funny. There was a Battlefield California, or California Divided, which was based on an earlier concept from a build-your-own-adventure game that I had created with my nephew David back in the day. David's about roughly my age due to my brother being in his... Now he's in his late 60s. So David was my age. So they had this sort of like... we made these space adventures, and this was one of them. Also, Sandoval the Hunted was one of them. But back then it was called Victory. And the Losers in Time was Time Winds, and they had bicycles, and would go and ride the bike and go through time. Stuff like that. That's before Time Rider, incidentally. Yes, before that book. I knew about that book later, much later. I went, oh, yeah. But no. Yeah, needless to say, a bike is probably not a good time travel vehicle. So they had more of a machine and Losers in Time. Actually, the movie that came out last year called the Almanac. It's very similar idea, very very similar, very close. Almanac. We did not write that. Apparently, they read the story on my blog and copied it. Only enough of it so that they wouldn't get in trouble. And yeah, they didn't do it right. So they should have just asked me. I would have fixed it for them. Or a movie. So make yours more like Hot Tub Time Machine. That was the idea. That's closer to the story. Hot Tub Time Machine. Not the sequel though. Yeah. And Back to the Future, of course. But yes, time travel is very problematic, as Marx Cards would say. Let's see. So we could do something with the charismatic captain, the AI, and the robot, and the funny crew. Sort of a Firefly type of thing. But not ripping off Firefly. We know you're very similar, Firefly. Very similar to Starcrackers. Space Cop is very similar to Starcrackers. But yeah, as well. But yeah, in modern. And so, yeah, there was a lot of the stories tend to cross-pollinate. There were some Transformer ones that became Trans-Tech. The Transformers became Robotech. There were some other ones that were like... there was Clement's Vengeance and Sassy Geneva, kind of the same idea. Some main hero character who's snarky, does like a Die Hard thing, and he goes and beats a main bad guy. In Clement's Vengeance, it's a prequel to Distant Cousins at the time. And Distant Cousins, which was Distant Destinies. Not to be confused with the movie, in which that's a coincidence. That movie title was a horror movie. This, not so much. We did not know about the movie until the movie came out and had to change the name to Distant Destinies. Yes, but yes, the movie got changed. So, also, the video game Destiny has nothing to do with us either. They got that wrong. So, there you go. They just didn't ask. Got it completely wrong. I was like, what? Mars and space guns and well, no, not exactly. No. Yeah, the sphere thing that was in Trans-Tech. Okay, whatever. Power Matrix. Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of cross-pollination in sci-fi anyway. And the idea of having like villains who were modeled roughly after bullies, in grade school, probably not a good idea. And not a good idea to make you the Mary Sue that goes and defeats the bullies. That's even cheesier. Yeah, don't do that. Clement's Vengeance is a mess, and like the other one is as a mess. And I did not repost Clement's Vengeance or California Divided because California Divided is too much close to actually what's going on, and Clement's Vengeance is archaic and doesn't really work. Yeah, dystopia is kind of going on the out. I mean, they're still doing dystopian stories, but it's much more fun to do something else. I think much more fun to be less gritty and dark. The other stories were fun. Gene Pool is Out. That was a horror story about a fly type of thing. A fly scientist mutates himself, kind of thing. But that's still one of our stories, so we're still using it. And let's see. So yeah, lots of short stories out there. Sassy Geneva's team was Mearson's World. It was Distant Destinies as well, but set on this post-apocalyptic planet where they decided to transport cars that could also fly to this planet so they could settle it and have it be like Mad Max crossed with flying cars, with other cars and things like Back to the Future a little bit. Yeah, it was ripping off Back to the Future a little bit. Back to the Future 2. Ripping off Mad Max a little bit. And interestingly enough, Millar, who did Mad Max, apparently read it, and he said, yes, let's do that. If there had been a flying car in Fury Road, I would have been like, hey, that's interesting. But no, he didn't really. But it is interesting that Furina acts almost exactly like Sassy Geneva in Sassy Geneva's Racing Team, the Cars story. And you might be thinking, oh, Cars from Pixar, Cars. Pixar got it wrong. When they Disney probably looked at the story, they're like Techron cars. Ooh, the cars talk. No, the cars never talked in the Cars, the short story that was up and the novel thing. The cars aren't supposed to talk. They're not autonomous. They're more like Kit from Knight Rider. So I was ripping off Kit. But they're more like Knight Rider, and they're AIs. And it's not that they're alive. This AI in the car. It's still a car, and they fly around. And Sassy and her team go and defeat the bullies. In the rewrite, they turn out to be werewolf aliens, but so yeah, there's lots of weird stuff that I was doing, and yeah, some of that stuff is going to get redone now. You could almost come up with a series idea there. You could almost take some of the unused star crackers with the space station and the best and the brightest are dead and do something with that, or you could do something with the car people or something, because we're not going to use it in Star Crackers or Distant Destinies, and make another sci-fi serial series that has to do with these guys doing things with AIs and computers and ships. They don't have to be cars. That's outdated. Make them ships and spacecraft and maybe even robots, maybe a Robotech type of thing. But yeah, do something with it that isn't really dated, and it work. Yeah, so yeah, early our stuff. And yeah, let's do that. So yeah, we're doing some with the short story, so at least I am. We'll see if Mark's Cars is on board, doing something of that. Maybe they can turn, in addition to Gay Kitty, possibly into something. Maybe the car one could be turned into something. The spaceships and the AIs and the computers. I don't think any of the other stuff would work because it's such an in-joke. I mean, Gary, this alien contact. No, that's not going to work. That doesn't even make sense. No. But the idea of having smart aleck characters on a ship is funny, and having pirates on a ship is funny, and having fun sort of goofy characters would be awesome. Sort of a dystopia / utopia / Space Federation spoof thing would be pretty crazy and awesome. Yeah, but it's not Star Crackers. It would be its own thing. It'd come up with its own thing, like we did with the other thing, the years after leaving, the Fictional Adventures rewrite thing, which has kind of those elements, but makes the sarcastic crew different in some way. So yeah, there's my take on updates on some of the short stories that have been moved, some of which you can still read on the Quarkus Kitty website. Quarkus. Yeah, Quarkus KITTY. Google. Old Google site. Yeah. So that would be Weird Kitty 07 on YouTube. Yeah. So, but this is, I guess, for the other channel. Anyway, so yeah.